Well, Ross, it's Sunday, it's Bruichladdich Day. For me, probably the highlight of the Fèis calendar this year in particular is going to be something special.
Yeah, there's always a really good atmosphere. This is the one the locals get excited for. And it's probably was the biggest eye-opening experience for me last year.
Yeah, you had an epiphany last year.
I did. We're going to try a couple of belting whiskies. I can't believe it, but it's Port Charlotte's first ever single cask, officially.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to trying that.
Octomore-wise, we've got the oldest ever expression, a best of previous expressions. We're going to bring in Adam Hannett, head distiller, who's going to talk us all through it.
Sounds good.
Well, Ross, we've torn ourselves away from the music and the fun in the courtyard, and we've come to a quiet little warehouse to get stuck into this expression, and joined, of course, by head distiller Adam Hannett. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
My pleasure, Laurie.
Yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed the masterclass this morning. Again, it's to be one of the highlights of the festival. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's good to get it out of the way. It's just you build yourself up so much for it. It's a great event, but you can relax a little bit.
It's like a wedding speech, isn't it? That's
Exactly.
stressful,
That's it.
and then you can just enjoy the party.
Exactly. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy the drams. It's all good now to be on this side of it.
It's a massive day for the locals as well. This is the one that I came for my first festival last year and was just blown away.
Yeah.
You had Tidelines performing as well, so it was actually a personal highlight.
Nice,
Whiskey aside,
You were shedding a tear at one point towards the end.
Rock and Doll, which is such an amazing thing that you do and brings us on to your fantastic release this year. What we've had on the channel previously, as we've both been Port Charlotte fans, but we had Port Charlotte's 18-year-old, and then we had the release from last year, which again was an older expression of Sauterne.
Yeah.
And so far, 2 for 2.
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
absolutely loved that older style of Port Charlotte. We do like the distillate. What have we got this year for Rock and Doll?
So for Rock and Roll this year with the Port Charlotte, it's a single cask, and it's a 19-year-old Muscatel cask, and it is an absolutely it's a gem. I'm pretty confident we're going to go 3 for 3 here. It's one of those ones again. We're looking around and we want to get a nice kind of single cask of Port Charlotte for the Fèis, and once I tasted that was it. Done. Job done. It was just a really great
And
moment.
sort of full maturation as well.
Yeah.
That's a big, bold cask type to use, which is really fantastic because you've got a big, bold spirit.
Yeah. And this is the thing, I think it's a very experimental thing, and again, it kind of connects us back to those early days of the distillery and that kind of experimental, and let's just try it and see what happens. And here we are all these years later getting the benefit from it, and I think it works. I'm excited to see what you think when we open it up.
So for Port Charlotte, obviously we've done small batch things in the past, and I'm thinking this is the first ever officially bottled single cask, which is amazing. Is that just to celebrate Fèis? Is it something you've been planning for a while?
Yeah, I think it's just to celebrate Fèis. It's these kind of big moments, and I think when you do a single cask of Port Charlotte, although again it's a butt, a Muscatel butt, so it's a big cask, but there's only so much for the world, So actually, let's have it here at the distillery for the first time.
We have been saying since the last festival, it's brilliant to then rewarding people who are coming to Islay. They're making that journey over to come and celebrate the island in this fantastic festival. So what an opportunity to give them that little bit of reward for coming here.
Definitely.
So just over 600 bottles produced.
That's right.
And cask strength, natural colour, all the rest, all the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't mess around here. There's no artificial colour. There's no chill filtration. It's just naturally from the cask. Filter out any bits of kind of sediment from the wood and then into the bottle. Nice
I'm
and
expecting
easy.
this to be big and bold. In fact, it's got a bright yellow label.
It does look good, doesn't it?
Start.
I can't believe it's the first single cask. We'll let you do the honours.
Okay, let's open it up. Absolutely.
Laurie, what are you anticipating?
As we said, Port Charlotte for us, of the 3 obviously spirit types that the distillery produces, Port Charlotte for me is consistently excellent. I think at a slightly older age, because it's not a young whiskey at all.
No.
Particularly in 2025, 19 years is a heck of a long time.
It is.
It's a mature whiskey.
There we are, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Have a little taste, see what you think.
Thank you so much for sharing. Cheers to
your
health.
Slange. Now, dive in, have a little nose. Again, with a whiskey like this, it's 19 years old. It's going to take a little bit of time, and each time over the next we always say like a minute for every year as it opens up. So I don't know if we've got 20 minutes to go through this, but we'll get the initial impression. But I think the great thing is the complexity here. It'll open, it'll change, it'll develop. But the colour, again, the texture in the glass, that viscosity, the way it coats the glass, even before you nose and taste that, you know that there's a lot going on there. So.
And again, the nose, it's not an overwhelming peak smoke. It is actually loads going on.
Yeah.
Again, it's rich, it's quite indulgent.
Yeah.
We speak a lot about, particularly in Islay, about distillery DNA, about distillery character. And it's, maybe it's an excuse for distilleries to bottle young whiskey. They say we want to maintain that distillery DNA, not let the cask dominate. How have you managed to retain that Port Charlotte style even after close to 2 decades?
Well, this is the thing. I think with the, like you say, that character, the way we distill, whether it's Bruichladdich, Port Charlotte, and Octomore, it's the same way. Long fermentation, developing lots of flavour, running the stills nice and slow, lots of contact with copper. You get a nice, elegant. You think of the length of the neck of the stills. You've got this amazing kind of light, floral, delicate distillate. But again, with the peat smoke of the Port Charlotte, you've got that bit of robustness that stands up really well in a cask like that. But again, it's paying attention, it's watching the casks as they're maturing and as they're developing.
And people would have these preconceived notions about PX and Oloroso for a full maturation for 19 years. But Moscatel, tell us a wee bit about that decision to use that full maturation in this style of sherry and what's different about it.
Well, again, this goes back a long way, and again, we're going back to kind of 2005 for this whiskey. So the distillery obviously reopened in 2001. There's that experimental nature that we don't just need to stick to bourbon and sherry, bit of Madeira or port. It's everything is open, and just as we were talking before, you look around as we stood here and the amount of different types of casks and wood we have. It's about experimentation, and I think you go back to 2005 and Jim McEwen making that decision: what will we fill? Where will we source our casks? Scour the world, see what's there, and just try it and see. So there wasn't a we think this will work. It's will this work? And here we are getting the benefit of it later on.
I perhaps assumed that in the slightly older distillate, the peat would dissipate more, but actually that Port Charlotte DNA is still there.
It's still there, absolutely.
It drinks really well at the strength, fantastic texture. Again, I say it quite a lot, I love a whiskey that I can chew, and I'm getting that with this.
Again, bottling things at cask strength, the way we do things, that it's less dilution, the viscosity of the liquid really shows through. Again, that slow distillation, preserving those oils from the barley that carry that flavour. I mean, to me, that is just a lovely, lovely dram. And as I say, it's changing, it's starting to open up.
It's velvety.
How's the palate for you?
It's so good. I think it's at this strength, it goes down such a treat.
That 53.3 is we call it that drinkable. You get the option, which is lovely to have, but also you're not getting too challenged on the palate.
Cask strength whiskies we've tried, and it's like a running joke. You take a sip, and within a split second, we're rushing to add water. For this, we'll maybe try it. But
I think it's really good as it is, and again, like you say, there's the option to add a little bit of water there with the cask strength, but again, that texture is lovely. The finish, the way it develops on the palate as well. It's really, there's a lot of sweetness in there, so there's lots of like stone fruit jam, that kind of
like toasted, that kind of bitter marmalade. I love that toasted note on the palate.
Again, a lot of burnt sugar, like cinder toffee. You get that lovely kind of again dark chocolate notes in there. Again, it's rich, it's velvety. It's got this lovely kind of texture to it, and it just keeps on giving, And then the peat smoke. We're not even talking about the peat smoke in there. But it is there, it's intertwined and everything. That kind of cinder toffee with a smoke through it. And then on the finish, again, you've got that lovely kind of salinity. You've got that little kind of touch of savoury kind of notes in there.
The addition of water and rose, of course, brings a little bit of light, bright. Again, hides his peat a little bit. It's almost overly inviting now on the nose.
I think that's so pleasant. It reminds me of some really nice like Sauternes whiskies I've had before, which have that syrupiness to it.
Oh, with the addition of water,
it's stunning.
It is sweeter, certainly sweeter. That powdered sugar. What a drop! 3 for 3. You called it.
No, as I say, I think when you come across, I remember opening the cask and going, there you go, that's it, done. That's the one. There we are. So.
And so, what does the selection process look like for you? Picking your lock and dull release. You got in mind the kind of thing you're looking for based off of the last year's kind of reception or people's thoughts, or are you going, it needs to be different?
I think we've got the opportunity to have a real bit of freedom, So again, it is often looking back at some of these things, and as I'm working and going around, and you kind of remembering cask or coming back to cask to check. And again, the kind of all bets are off. There's no kind of structure to work to. We can really just pick. We can really just pick what we think is a great whiskey for the day. And I think your point earlier about rewarding people who come to Islay, it's always been something really important to us, because when people come over, they get to kind of really get into that Bruichladdich experience, and what Islay means to us. So coming here and being able to get something a little bit special, a little bit of a reward, because Islay is a difficult place to get to.
Exactly. I can't stand it. If this was available 2 months before the festival online, it lets the island down.
Yeah.
Because there's not that opportunity to come and experience the culture and go, do you know, I really need that bottle.
Yeah.
Laurie and Ross said it's fandabidosi, I need to get a bottle of that, you know?
So with this being a single cask, obviously it's limited to
Yes.
650-ish bottles.
Yes.
How are you going to make it available? Is it just on the day? Is it kind of to...
As far as I know,
It's
just
a tricky one to keep
it
everyone
is.
happy.
And do you know, we know we're not going to be able to keep everyone happy.
Yeah.
With that. It is a special, but as I say, for people who come here and are able to get it, it's a really special thing.
Yeah.
A really special thing.
Chocolatey and sweeter on the palate with water. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Pleasure.
It's probably the best port shot I've had. proper delicious.
And what a pleasure to share this dram with you and celebrate Rock and Doll 2025. I've got one more special release to try from you this year.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, gents, that was a stunning start to Rock and Doll 2025 with a single cask Port Charlotte. We're now going to move on to the Octomore, which for me is one of the most iconic, striking bottle designs in Scotch today. Adam, obviously head distiller, are you able to give us a quick overview of what Octomore means to you?
Well, quick? No. I can definitely give you an overview. I think Octomore is an amazing whiskey. It's probably the most Bruichladdich thing we do in terms of experimentation, pushing the boundaries by its very nature. It is pushing the boundaries of peat, and then and amongst that, cask types, you know, kind of provenance. We take every kind of aspect of what was important to us when making whiskey with Octomore, and it's a what if. You know, what if we did this? Nobody else does anything like Octomore. And I think it's just, again, for our DNA, our personality.
Challenging the norms, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Pushing boundaries.
From the bottle shape to the iconic blacked out bottle to challenging us with these PPMs that you've done previously. This bottle is really eye-catching. Got this kind of blue design around it. Tell us a little bit about that.
So again, this is for me is a great thing about the team and the kind of design element in what we do here and the passion that goes into it. You know, it's kind of those like 80s kind of remix album kind of things in there. There's loads of touches, loads of detail. It's like everything means something. And to me, again, that's the passion of the design team, the guys who are working on this. It's not just me making the whiskey. There's a whole team around making this come together and putting our personality into that dram. So again, the little tractor on there is kind of that link to the kind of agricultural side of things that we do as well. It's just
you've got that Bruichladdich Aqua in there as well.
I like it.
Beautifully.
Laurie, I'm nervous, and you know I'm not a bit nervous about this. So
Octomore sometimes for you, I think it's more...
It's the idea of Octomore rather than the reality of it.
It can be a little bit intimidating for those that don't like peat, because it's, you know, this is the world's smokiest whiskey ever. But it's not... The ones I've had have never been out of control. There's always been thought gone into it, the cask type, the age.
My thought was always that I have perhaps a slightly immature palate to very heavily peated spirit. And so the idea of it being the most heavily peated spirit was really intimidating to me. But when we came to your masterclass, Fèis Ìle 2024, I had a great time. And I had two slightly older cask sample expressions. So that kind of peat had dissipated and I thought they were quite complex and interesting. This here is a little bit different for Octomore. This is the oldest Octomore you've ever bottled.
That's right, I think it's interesting that you say there, you know, that the idea of it is almost too much. And that's part of the provocation of Octomore. That on paper, this should not work. But there are people who are die-hard fans of Octomore because of the quality of the flavour. So on paper, it shouldn't work. It's too young, too peaty, too strong with Octomore. Actually, think about everything we do. The way we distill, the proposition, is difficult, but when you taste the whiskey, all of those things start to kind of fall away, and you question, well, why is it so important? Why PPM, strength, all these kind of things, you think about the quality of distillation. But this in particular it kind of touches on what you say there. Last year at the festival, we tasted 2003 Octomore, which again, for me, going to that kind of 20, 21 years and tasting this whiskey and thinking, this is unlike anything ever. And again, because we've only started making Octomore in 2002, we have to wait to be able to taste something like that. So that was part of the inspiration here for the... I'll just go ahead and open it.
Absolutely.
Part of the inspiration here was looking to see...
how it's developing, seeing how... Because I guess it has worked so well at such a young age and such a bold presentation, but it must be really exciting for you to now see how it's continuing to develop, because actually, 2002 wasn't that long ago when you consider Bruichladdich history. So it is really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Pleasure.
An obvious question, Laurie, where's the PPM?
Yeah, is that the be all and end all though of Octomore?
I mean, it's certainly what we think of when we think of Octomore, isn't it?
I think when the press release went out about this, on paper it was the Fèis release that got me most excited, because I suppose the concept of this is that it's celebrating the journey that Octomore's been on, and it's almost like a greatest hits, a best of Octomore. So it's a complicated recipe.
It is, yeah. And as I say, there's a few things that come together. Rock'n'Roll itself, the idea that we have all of these eclectic musicians coming, and we're celebrating all these kind of things, the whiskies that we're making, you know, the greatest hits of Octomore, that kind of track list, if you like, looking at some of the parcels that we've never released before, and again, taking that idea of these old things, you know, these old editions, how has time affected them? Basically, this is a combination of all of those factors. So we've got some of those greatest hits, some of the 6.3, the first ever Islay Octomore, or Octomore we released, kind of 258 ppm. Some like the 8.4, we've got a 2005 Grenache cask in there, which is again, just it was one of one, but you know, that sample in amongst everything else just heightens this amazing experience. It's a little bit, it's a similar kind of vein to the OBA. In that we're not stating a ppm because there's so many different components, each with their own ppm.
That's what got us excited about it. It really is, and to hear that you've got some genuine one-of-one experimental Octomores that you thought this is the project for it.
Absolutely,
it's got us excited.
It feels like it's a purely flavour-led project
and exactly that. And you know, the idea with this is like, I was thinking, hoping you're not going to ask me too many details of the components because I make it so complicated myself to try and remember them all. But ultimately, it's that combination of everything, all of those different things, having the detail of all of those different components that ultimately adds up to the whole in that experience.
Was it important in the creation of it to have them all being at least 15 years old? Because we've said Octomore can be so different, obviously, so different young. But it would be. Yeah, imagine it'd be a challenge to bring those together and still create a harmonious.
Absolutely, I think you're right. Age is really important because again, that 2003 we tasted last year, the masterclass, that was the kind of the hook for me really to kind of think about that old. What does Octomore when it's older do? Because we tend to release at 5, maybe 10 years. So actually, that extra addition of age, which of course we have to wait for. Now is the time we can start to look into that and see how that changes. And I'm really keen to know what you think, gents.
What a whiskey.
Is it? Not what I anticipated at all.
Where's the peat?
The
nose is so welcoming, so open. It's sweet, it's rounded, it's inviting. The palate has a kind of coastal fresh note to it, as well as having a kind of jammy, rich, sweet note to it. I'm a little confused by this whiskey.
It's a word I never thought I'd say for Octomore. It's quite mellow on the palate as well, and I think it's a characteristic of whiskey
as well. 54.9%. Like a lot. When I think of Octomore, again, I think of 61, 62%. So the fact that you've been able to put these components together, get this calculated strength, you know.
It's the influence of time, which is at the heart of this, and it's. Again, you can't replicate it, you've got to wait for it, and here we are being able to kind of take this extra dimension of Octomore, which we're not used to. Octomore is really difficult to make. We can't, by its very nature, make a huge amount of it. So we have to have these kind of.
We've tried a lot of whiskey recently from new distilleries, so it's fair enough for releasing it quite young. And they're using STR casks and all that sort of stuff to try and speed up that aging process. I think sometimes we're almost kind of tricked to think this does taste like a 15, 20-year-old, but when it's the real deal,
it's that mellowness and it's that breadth of flavour. Yes, you can use casks that give you a massive impact, but you cannot substitute time in these warehouses because these casks are breathing as you're getting that kind of losses. The angel share kind of evaporates, and that Islay is going in there, and that cask and that spirit are developing and creating flavour. There is no substitute for that. And I've been working at Bruichladdich since 2004. And I still, after all these years, can't quite put my finger on how to explain the process of maturation and what you get with time. It's really, really difficult, but when you taste it, you know, and you can experience it here, that mellowness, that richness.
It's like the offside rule. It's hard to explain, but when you see it and you taste it, you're like, that's
honestly, the nose now to me is really buttery and biscuity. And again, just so alien to what I was thinking, what I was anticipating. This must have taken a lot of trial and error to get to this, and a lot of cast samplings. How you're thinking about doing this?
There was a lot of components that I thought would be fantastic and would really work and would really complement. But again, it was just the combination that we have come to is ultimately the one that works the best for me, because there was some that didn't make it in this, that didn't quite have the right kind of balance. But ultimately, again, you're putting those samples together, tasting it, and you get to a point where you go, that's the one. That's what's given us what we want. That's what I like.
So I want absolute dram.
I've not even added any water to it yet.
No, I was like,
Again, please do, because it'll open it up the dram really, really nicely. So I'll probably splash in there.
Yeah, and this is an out-turn, Adam, of, I guess, was it 2,500?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is, to be honest, a relief, because if it was a single cask,
exactly. We can't do that.
He's begging you to set one aside.
That's fantastic for Octomore fans.
Yeah. I think that's it. Again, it's still relatively limited, but again, it's trying to. We've always, like with the OBA again, that was something that people who are collecting every edition, and that was maybe 3,000 bottles. Well, now only 3,000 people can get that, or maximum can have that full collection. But again, I think for me, it's always about the flavour first, and so it could have been more or less. But the way we've combined the cask and the liquor we have, then it's about 2,500 bottles.
Yeah. Dead buttery, with a touch of water.
Isn't it? It's just, I'm almost annoyed by how much I love this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be totally honest and say I've never loved an Octomore.
Right, okay.
I think I love this.
This
is absolutely belting.
I'll take that. I will drink to that.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, what a pleasure. Thanks for talking us through it. And
cheers.
So good. I was going to say, that's the best Octomore I've ever had, but I was like, I said that for Port Charlotte as well. I was like, it's all going to come across as genuine. Yeah. Really, really good.
It's a nice dram, that, isn't it?
So good. If I gave it to you and didn't, I said, what do you think that is?
There's no chance.
Octomore being
No chance.
your last
No
guess.
chance.
Yeah.
Appley, citrusy kind of note in the finish there.
Do you know, I don't think we even spoke about, and there is obviously that distinctive Islay character on the back of the palate. The finish is long and it's a gentle smoke.
Yeah.
But in those, we didn't even give a smoky note once because there was so much more going on there.
Well, Ross, what an amazing experience we just had with Adam, head distiller here at Bruichladdich, and two amazing whiskies.
We're lucky boys.
Yeah.
We really are lucky boys. Two belting drams, two absolute firsts. Genuinely really interesting, and can't wait to get back out there and enjoy the rest of the day with the locals.
Yeah.
It is always a really fun day. Where are we off to tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Monday, so we're off to Kalila, heading up the road. Always fun, always lively.
Yeah, beautiful brand home and a really exciting new release.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and comment and let us know what you think of Bruichladdich.